Like,
I'm
I
still
don't know,
shocked
but I
that
just,
we don't
people are calling me like,
maybe we've said a bad example.
neighbor conflict. Stories?
Good evening. It's 6:55.
I mean, it's really.
We have a special council meeting for this August 2nd meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De
Here.
Leon?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Ferrara?
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg? Here. Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Here.
Mr. Sidoti?
Here.
Mr. Turner?
Here.
And Ms. Wallach? Here.
Mr. Kuhar asked to be excused. Is there a motion? Glenn, second by Garrett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This legislation that we're going to consider tonight was, actually, the motion came in the July 19th meeting. So would the clerk please read the draft, number 2023-048?
Draft 2023-048, a resolution supporting the League of Women Voters to vote no on Issue 1 on August 8th, 2023, to maintain Ohioans' freedom to place constitutional amendments on the ballot, uphold the sacred principle of one person, one vote, and curtail this blatant power grab by politicians in declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second by Garrett. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Who seconded? Tracy? Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance?
That'll come up under.
Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Resolution 2023-048 has passed.
All right, we're adjourned for the special council meeting. Hang on, we can't start till 7 o'clock with the council meeting. That's all. schedule with the
Yeah.
clerk.
Yeah.
Call the roll.
An omen for tonight.
Mr. Amrine?
Here.
Mr. De Leon?
Here.
Mr. Ferrara?
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg? Ms. Schaefer-Bish? Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr.
here.
Turner?
Yes.
And, okay, that's it.
Again, Mr.
So moved.
Barr, I guess Tracy was sick too, so we're
She
excused.
didn't feel well, so she left.
Is there a motion to that?
Yes.
Second by who? Glenn? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Dave or Bridget, I'm just gonna talk to the public hearing.
That would be Bridget.
All right, just wanna make sure I covered both bases.
No, thank you.
Tonight's public hearing is to provide an opportunity for public comment on proposed text amendments to Chapter 1105, conditions applicable to specific land uses, Chapter 1106, general provisions, Chapter 1109, signs, and Chapter 1111, administrative boards and commissions.
Anybody from the public have questions, comments? Seeing none, the public hearing's closed. Thank you, Bridget, as always. All right, we're going to move in to committee reports. First up is Committee of the Whole. Update from Dr. Dana.
Dr. D.
Dr. D.
Welcome back.
I like that, Dr. D.
Dr. D, Dr. Dana. Just Dana's fine.
I know.
Thank you. It's good to see all of you. I appreciate always the time council provides for a university update, and we have lots. So I will go through these, but I'll provide a copy to Amy, and certainly if you have questions, but we're excited. So it's August. I don't know where summer went. It feels like come August, it's already like fall, and kids are getting ready to go back to school, and I just want to hold on just a little bit to summer, but we're gearing up. So right now, enrollment is comparable to last year. We're looking at about 25,000 students that will be on the Kent campus. That's definitely a combination of those in the community, and we're almost at 100% for housing on campus as well. We have growth in graduate and international student populations, which is pretty exciting given, where we've been from the pandemic, et cetera. So we're excited about that. Some other kind of data points that I think speak to our strong town and gown relationships, and the fact that a lot of families are excited about the city and those partnerships. We had 2 summer preview days the last 2 Fridays. 911 families visited across the dates. That's an increase of about 40% from last year. And 83% of the attendees were from Ohio, but we also had folks from 19 states and as far away as Greece. So it's kind of exciting that we're coming to our backyard. Overall, we have really just increased our visits through admissions office since January 1st, 2023. So nearly 6,000 students have gone through a formal tour or an event, and that's almost an 8% increase over last year. And what we've done, and I'm really excited about that, Michelle Hartman has been a part of that. Anecdotally, she's talked a lot about folks stop at the visitor center. So we've been trying to figure out a more formal way to fold into the city. So one of the things we've done, if you come on any of the visit days, you'll see this beautiful, it's probably the size of one of these tables, big display that highlights the city of Kent with a QR code that takes you to a map, the Main Street Kent map. And then we did a pilot last year, last spring, to just give the Kent card that runs through Main Street Kent to families during what's called our yield event. These are students and families admitted, and we want to get them to commit to Kent State. And that drove about $3,500 of additional income down to the businesses. So we are excited. That was a pilot, and we're going to explore more of that this upcoming year. Want to circle back to you about some of the neat things with our dining partnerships. We've talked very openly about ways relationship with our culinary services. So this past year we piloted the Dining Dollars, where a portion of students' meal cards can be used in any of the places that sign up and are part of, there's a system, a flashcard system essentially. So last year it generated almost $60,000 for participating businesses. So we're really good, really proud about that number, and we're projecting well over $100,000 for just fall. because of the nature of the meal plans, and hoping to promote that. That was a pilot last year, and we'll promote that meal plan even further and expand it to more businesses that want to be a part of it. And in fact, I just sent something out to the Town and Gown listserv. We're doing a promotion for food trucks that they can sign up and get the actual flashcard at no cost to them to participate in our Food Truck Fridays, or I think Wednesdays. Those will continue all throughout the fall. And that's been a really successful opportunity for food trucks to come onto campus. Also, some of you may be familiar with the Tahini MC Mediterranean Cuisine. It was a food truck. They actually occupy the Rathskeller, and they're continuing their contract for next year, which has provided a really nice local healthy option for students. So if you get on campus, check them out in the basement. As it relates to construction, work continues. You see it daily on the Ambassador Crawford Business Building. I know we'll all be excited when that starts to become more closed in, just as you are, I'm sure, excited about your own building. Terrace and that connected street is opening now. It's open now, but they're still closing it off and on, but that does allow that thorough way through campus. Also, the solar array project, I know Doug's talked quite a bit with different folks within the city about that. That installation project will start in October. So if you have questions, let me know or Doug know. And then if there's other updates on construction, we'll circle back and let you know. And then just some big things coming up this month. New student move-in begins August 15th. So that's roughly 14 days away, so things will start really ramping up from here on out. That weekend is really, really busy. So that weekend is actually our KSU kickoff, so our welcome back events, current students and new students come back. It's the Dog Days of Summer on August 19th, and it's summer graduation. So all the things are happening that weekend. So you might want to stay around or you might want to leave town, depending on your flavor of you like a lot of folks around, but we're pretty excited. We're also really excited for something that is on the agenda a little bit later, is an expanded version of our Kent Connects program you may have remembered from last year, which is essentially where the mayor and different city officials who are here, nonprofits, et cetera, it's their chance to say, hi, we're a part of this, welcome new students. Well, we're going to take it up a notch, and we're going to create a new tradition called Flash's First Thursday. This is taking place on Thursday, August 24th. It's the first Thursday of the semester. We hope all of you will come, and we're actually moving it into downtown. So there's some street closures we're requesting. We have over 50 businesses, nonprofits, community partners already signed up. We're partnering with Hometown Bank because they have their music series. Michael Weber will be performing. We have some pretty awesome prizes, T-shirts, just really wanting it to be a welcome to and back festival that really connects current and new students, staff, faculty, and community members all together. So we want to actually create a tradition that first Thursday of each semester becomes something. So, I hope you can all be there. Mayor, we've got some ideas for you that may involve a dunk tank, just saying.
I hope it's for a one-legged person, though.
Just a few other dates that I want to make sure you're aware of. We have Parent and Family Weekend on September 29th and 30th. We'll send these out to the listserv and we'll get them to council too. Homecoming is on October 21st. It's a little bit later this year due to the football schedule. The community rally is that Friday beforehand. And then athletics had a few updates they wanted me to pass along. Just really proud of our athletics and all of our students. You may not know, last year our average GPA was a 3.07, which is impressive. We had 2 MAC tournament titles, men's basketball and women's golf, 4 MAC regular title or co-champ season titles. And then, as you know, we are in the new grit era with our new coach. And we have a football event coming up on August 18th with Hometown Bank, really promoting increase in season ticket holders. So I'll send information out about that. And finally, I just want to thank Michelle Hartman and Chief Shearer, are part of a grant we got from the state of Ohio to really increase the safety of our bars. It's the Safe Bars training, and they participated in that today with folks on the Kent campus in ways we can continue to make sure that students have a good time but are also safe. So I think I got it all out. Questions?
Are there questions? Sounds like it's gonna be busy. Go ahead, Gary.
Where are the food trucks and what days are those that they do that?
So those are on Wednesdays during lunch, and those every Wednesday in the fall. And those are in the center of campus, right by the student center, the kind of the green circle area. So
And it's open to the public, too?
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. We'd love, and I'll send that out on the listserv too. We'd love to have more public come on campus, and I think the food trucks would too.
I do have to say, we had clients come in from out of town, and we took them up for a tour of campus, and you take it for granted, to be quite honest, if you live here, but they were they're from New Jersey, and they were fascinated. We took them to Kent State, the May 4th site, and you know how well done it is, and just how good campus looks. So it was, and you know, I got an email a week later with a follow-up just reiterating how impressed they were with the university and the grounds and everything, so.
Thank you. And, you know, we tried, you know, this last year, not a lot of people took us up on it, but if you want a tour, or I'll get a golf cart, it's always fun to drive around campus. But if any of you would like the opportunity to do something a little more specialized, happy to do that. And I look forward to seeing many of you on August 16th. You asked Garrett, I delivered, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Very good.
All right, thank you for the time.
Make sure I get notification where I'm gonna be getting killed at.
You look great in that black squirrel outfit.
Yeah, oh, that'd be perfect. With a pink tail, maybe, huh? All right, next on there, New City Hall, Melanie, our service director.
I'll be quick tonight. You guys had an opportunity to walk through the building last month, so you saw quite a bit of it. It's continuing to move and go up. You've noticed that it's beginning to look like a cohesive structure on the outside, so that's our moisture barrier. So the building is almost completely encapsulated in that. And if you took a really close look today, the brick is starting to go up along on the base of the building. So it's really starting to come out of the ground and look like something. So I'm very excited. We were able to pick the brick, the mortar colors. So it's really coming together. We picked the sandstone pieces that'll go around the top again today. So HVAC is almost completed. The roof will actually start next week, so you'll see the cranes up there starting to bring those materials in. And we had an opportunity to IT and go over all of the special things that are going to be needed in council chambers, specifically under the dais, in order to operate all of your new surfaces and allow us to have that connectivity, make sure that Amy has what she needs in order to be able to run the TVs and those kinds of things for presentations. So again, Nick was really crucial on that. It was not a part of our original drawings because our old IT person had some security issues that he had, but Nick's really picked that ball up and continued to run with it. So I feel confident that we've caught it early enough. We'll be able to make those runs, get that low voltage wiring in, and it'll move along really smoothly rather than waiting until the end and having to cut into that new drywall. So I think we've spearheaded that off. So continuing to move, you're going to see stone brought onto the site too. All of our underground utilities are in, so all of our fire hydrants, our PIVs, all of the important things that we need in order to protect that building are in. Fire alarm, fire systems, or fire system I should say, as far as sprinklers are in. So moving right along and continuing to go that way. We're looking to hopefully get enclosed. We were hoping by the end of July, but we're looking more like mid to late August. So still within the range that we'll get it in before winter, and then we'll be able to move forward. We also had Dominion out today, so we'll be looking to place our manifold and be able to get the gas hooked up to the building as well. And you'll see the dumpster enclosure started, which is actually where the electric transformer will be placed as well. So we're working with First Energy too. So a lot going on that site. If you ever have any questions, we are going to look at taking staff out to that on a noon on a Wednesday one day. So we'll be trying to project that here in the next couple of weeks to get the staff members out there so they can see their new digs as well. So pretty exciting, moving quite along.
Any other questions for Melanie? Mr. Turner?
Yes. So, where are we right now on target date?
Well, I'm still holding to July of 2024. We did get our new schedule, and while we're a little bit in front of that, we had some delays. So I'm waiting to see where that schedule is. I don't think it'll be later than July, but I don't think it'll be January.
July or January. Anything starts with a J.
Exactly.
I might get in there. It would be great, actually, if we were able to get that thing done close to the festival.
Oh.
That would really be kind of cool.
Well, by then, we should be very, very, I mean, I would assume substantial completion would be well done by the fest next year. So that's a great idea. Occupancy would be our concern. So we'll start pushing a little bit harder to make sure that we're continuing to move forward with that, and it's a great target date.
Further questions? As always, Melanie, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is award revision for 2020. Bridget, you're back up.
Thank you, Mayor. And we may be continuing this item based on something that Heidi brought up, but I'm going to go through this, and I want to explain where we're at and why this is so complicated. So the 2020 census was done, and the count was 3 weeks after everybody was sent home for COVID. So that is problem number one. And based on that and no action by Congress, those census numbers and that information is what establishes the community's census population count for the next 10 years. The information, when it came back to us, we recognized that it was not reflective of all of the development and growth that we had, and it actually had reductions in certain areas of town where we knew there were none. So based on this information, we did end up submitting through a system that was set up by the census called the Census Question Resolution. That process did not begin, however, until January of this year. So there were a lot of communities that had the same issues that we had. Many were college towns, also our urban centers. Detroit has many challenges with their numbers. So we did submit. Actually, we submitted to the CQR process 3 times. The first time we included all of the data showing our multi-unit development, as well as the fact that no demolition occurred in areas where they had reduced. That was rejected because the only thing the CQR process was going to look at was the aggregate population. That was it. So we tried to come at it a different way. That also did not work. So when we submitted basically what we were limited to, and we ended up losing 12 people through that process. So that worked out well for us, as you can see. So we are established at a population of 28,203. One of the biggest challenges, in addition to what we think is a lower population count, although the overall population is low and we think it should be higher, the aggregate net loss isn't enough that it adversely affected a lot of our HUD funding. It did reduce it some, however. The bigger challenge when it comes to the wards is that they consolidated, created new, and removed census tracts from the 2010 census. So in prior, when we went from the 2000 to the 2010 and we're doing the ward maps, those block groups and census tracts were the same. And you cannot do a move on these wards less than a block group block. So I can't take a neighborhood. I can't take Miss Sally's house or May Street. It's whatever the smallest census tract geographic identifier is, which is a block group block. So in that process of them combining them, we had to kind of unbundle that. We had to say, okay, they're calling this new census tract this number. What was it on the last map, and what did that include? And in some cases, it was a consolidation of just block group blocks within a established ward. So they made an aggregate, there were smaller units, they made an aggregate. That was the exception, however, not the rule. Census tracts now, we're going across our existing wards from 2010, and the block group blocks had to be looked at almost brand new. So using that, we basically went through, and also the requirement that the wards have no more than a 10% differential. So that means if you look at the chart that I have that has the 2020 compared to it, this is just a simple calculation. In order to determine that 10%, we basically just did the simple calculation of the 10% of the average, and then that creates your range, 235 above and below, which creates our maximum and minimum. So the maximum in any population ward in order to comply with the charter requirement is 4,936, and the minimum is 4,465. So it is very much like a puzzle. We would try to move, and that would put somebody over, or we meet that one, but then we just made this ward under. So we have gone through numerous iterations, and we're able to arrive at this. However, Councilperson Schaefer-Bish has identified that the removal of May Street from Ward 4 will affect someone that is running in the current election. I can tell you that Ward 4 is the hardest one to move, because if you look at that map, it looks like there isn't any small areas, and that's because those are campus and our multi-units. So moving one block group block from Ward 4 can result in moving 120 people, which then would push us over. So it's really hard to remember that we cannot move a neighborhood or a street. We can only move a block group block. So, you know, in respect for her request that I look at this, since there is a member running that is on May Street that in the next election would be out if potentially that person were to even win, I will look at it again, but I can tell you that is probably the corner where it is the hardest, because the density is so high in Ward 4. We don't have small things that can move. It looks like they're small, but they're not. Those are big. That is campus. Those are the dorms. And those are all the multi-unit. That's University, College Towers, University Edge, all of those. So I would ask at this time that it be continued so I can, because there's nothing I like better than looking at these maps and playing with this census data. I'm telling you, it's great. It just keeps coming back on my list.
Bridget.
I like the date and time.
Robin?
That's
Yeah.
great.
My question is, this is not a disqualifier for
This is not for the current
gentleman,
election.
because it would not apply to this.
It would have to be filed with the Board of Elections prior to August.
right.
No. We have literally been struggling to try to get these maps right. We know that it would not apply until the next election. But we are required under the charter to get the wards within that 10% delta. So we do have to get this finalized. And then after we get the maps voted on, this is one item I will not be asking for approval with emergency, because the next step, which is my second favorite thing to do, is I got to write legal descriptions for all the wards. And if you've ever read a legal description for a property, you'll know why that is a long and tedious task. But we have to get the maps agreed to first. So I would respectfully ask for it to be continued so that staff and I can, me and one other person, look at this and see if we can somehow keep May in Ward 4. I can tell you it may not work, because we still have to meet that minimum and maximum. And you cannot take a block group block that's not contiguous. So I can't take one from another area, and even a corner doesn't work. It has to. So, but I'm willing to look at it again.
Go further, Robin?
Well, kinda. I'm sorry. You can go.
Yeah, Bridget, so what you're saying is that the person running would not be affected by this change?
Not in this election, absolutely not.
Not in this election?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. Because these are not going to be filed with the Board of Elections in time to meet their deadlines with regards to when items have to be on ballot and when candidates need to be declared.
Okay. Heidi?
Just a clarification, so that person, if they should win, would have 4 years to serve?
Yes. Yes, a term, a full term. These do
term.
not apply until the next,
Election.
right.
Okay, okay.
No, this would not affect if they were elected. That's not how this works. This would affect the next ward elections in 4 years.
I still have a very strong issue with the way that Ward 4 is configured. I have for a long time, because it is almost entirely comprised of students who live in dorms who cannot commit to a 4-year term. And so we have a very undemocratic situation where there's only, the way that you're taking it back to what it was, there's only one street of people that are year-round residents that would be more likely to be able to commit to a 4-year term. Therefore, it really narrows the pool of people that
But you have to remember, the census doesn't base it on the tenure type of the resident. It's just based on the counts.
Yeah, but the community should have some say in how these are portioned and I understand the blocks and all that, and I would be willing to take a look at the blocks issue and see if there's something we could do that could make it a little bit more fair. 'Cause
It would
my
require a
ward just
charter
got-
amendment.
Ward 5 just got huge.
Because there was a net loss in some.
Right,
Because
because of the
census-
pandemic.
Because of the census tracts. That's what I mean. It's because of the counts in those census tract block group blocks. Basically, the geographic identifier changes done by the census as well as the low count. So it was a perfect storm. I will say that currently this is in the charter. So a charter amendment can be made to change that 10% minimum maximum. It could also be the Ohio Revised Code allows for councils to be a full representation of the city. They're not on wards. It's just straight elections of, 9 members citywide. But those would require charter amendments, because right now, Section 12.02 of the city charter says that with each census, the wards have to be reapportioned, and there cannot be more than a 10% differential between the 6 wards. And the 6 wards is determined based on our population, because there were less wards, but when our population went over 25,000 under the Ohio Revised Code, we had to have 6 ward representatives if you were using wards as a way of seating your council.
Mhm. One more, Bo. But we do have some discretion in what blocks are in what ward. There's rules. They have to be contiguous, and there has to be, no more than 10% differential, et cetera, with the last census. But there is some discretion, so there could be some movement. It's not like our hands are completely tied as to where these boundaries are.
The block group blocks determine those boundaries. The block group blocks, because you cannot split a block group block.
Correct.
So
I
when
would
the
like to-
census puts those together, we have looked at this many different ways.
Understand.
The multi-unit, high density in the Ward 4 immediately basically populates. Quite honestly, if the pandemic had not hit and we had actually had counts, that number would have been much higher, and you would have seen probably different wards around it as well. But, the population is almost static compared to the last decennial census, and that's because of the count. So a lot of that multi-unit is continuing from what was before, and honestly, we had more density added. But
Right.
that's not reflective always in here.
I understand that.
We
So-
will look at it. I can look at it with a but I can only move within block group blocks. And I have to meet those minimums and maximums. So sometimes we'd be like, oh, that's great. And then as soon as we pulled it out,
It's a puzzle.
we dropped.
I understand
Right, we
that.
dropped and we were below. It's like, okay, well, now we just made Ward 5 below the required minimum. Or we put another one above the maximum.
There was some discretion last time we did this in 2010, though, because I remember being asked whether I would be willing to give up part of this, of Ward 5, to provide that to Ward 4. There wasn't this, here's how it has to be done.
They were block groups. I did that one. I was that person. That was John. I still remember that council meeting. It was at our old council chambers. John Kuhar was upset about losing a certain neighborhood. We tabled it, we continued it, and then I had to go back and move things around, and the only way was with that block group that you're referencing, block group block, and that's how we had to do it. But that was, I do remember that.
Yeah, and I know Ward 5 picked
Yes,
up several.
exactly. That's when May
new
Street moved. That's
areas.
exactly when May Street moved. Right, so it was moved for that one, but prior to that, it had been in 5, right.
Further, Heidi?
Not right now.
Robin?
Yeah. Quite frankly, May Street was in my ward, I believe.
Or 3.
But it-
3. Yeah, it was in 3, right.
Now, here's the problem, and because I sympathize with what Heidi's
Part of
saying, but
wasn't yeah.
we're talking about a student population. That's the issue. Students can vote, and the bottom line is their residence. That becomes very problematic because, quite frankly, they can turn out. They're not restricted from voting.
Correct.
And so at any time, if there's an issue, they can actually turn out. They choose not to because they're students and they might vote in a gubernatorial election as opposed to whatever is important to them. But I get Bridget indicating this is what we have to work with, because this is based on a population issue, not one of who turns out to vote issue. And so last time when we were talking about May Street, I was willing, I mean, because John was looking at losing something, because his was a student population base, that we could shift that, but like Bridget pointed out, there was a rationale that she could apply to be able to do that, that she's required to have to apply. And right now, I mean, I think the issue is going to be whether or not this person can be grandfathered in for this election cycle.
Well, this will not affect this election cycle.
So he's grandfathered in for that purpose, even though that will change in 4 years.
Once these
After
are
4
finalized,
years,
yeah.
if in fact we maintain the boundaries that you have identified. But that's going to be an issue for us, and I have to be honest with you, I kind of wonder, what is the logic that allows you to go in? I mean, are we now indicating, well, we're looking at how this affects an individual? And
That is not
therefore
mine to answer.
Yeah, and therefore we're looking at making changes to accommodate that, or are we looking at something a lot more objective, which is the criteria that you're applying?
Yes.
Which is, you know, and you kind of don't want to go down that kind of rabbit hole a bit, because what you're doing is a very objective application.
Yes.
And the other one gets a little more subjective, and I get a little worried about that, although I certainly support the issue. This gentleman came in, the boundaries were what they were, he went out in good faith, he's on, and that's not going to be affected now, but maybe down the road.
It's the same as the redistricting that happens at the
Right.
state and federal level. And that, remember, is why the census is established by the federal government in the first place. It was done to determine the number of representatives that were going to be in the House. So it is literally done for districting purposes, and we just are applied it in our charter at this lower level. So it's straight population count.
Dan?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Heidi?
Yeah, well, the issue isn't the people that are voting. The issue is the people that are able to commit to a 4-year term. So we may want to get a little creative as a council for, you know, a potential charter amendment about how we might structure, if we could, and this is outside the purview of this conversation, but I just wanted to clear the air that this was about the number of people that can run to actually commit to the term, to serving their term out. I mean, I don't think it's fair for people to run and only be able to serve for a year in full knowledge that they're going to be moving somewhere else, which is typically the truth for an on-campus student. But, you know, if maybe we thought about maybe creating an on-campus district where the terms were different, that could be something we could talk about.
Maybe I'm wrong, but if this person chose to run in the district or the boundaries has changed, they can run in that other ward.
Correct.
So it's not putting a ceiling that he's done in 4 years.
No, it's not the person. It's the fact that before this ward was expanded, there was only one street of full-time residents that could
Garrett's right.
conceivably
We're
run.
getting self-serving here.
Well, I thought it was a really good thing when we started to diversify Ward 4 a little bit more. And I think that's a good thing for the city overall.
Is there further questions down? So I'm understanding, Bridget, you want to take this
If
back?
the council wants me to look at it and see if I can make May back into Ward 4, I can look. I can tell you, I have done more changes in that quadrant between 5, 4, and 6, and yeah, it's just, I can look at it again. When I come back, it may be that I couldn't make that work, that I couldn't get the block group blocks to move because of the requirement that I meet this minimum maximum and that I cannot move smaller than a block group block. So a block group block, like the last one, the reason I was able to do what Robin referenced was I was able to find a block group block that literally had a 4 count. And by moving that, I was able to make a change of something. I remember the number 58. I had to move 58 without going over a maximum. So it literally is a puzzle, and it can't go below that. So there is no guarantee. I can tell you, we've been looking at this for months.
Understand the parameters you're working with then.
Thank you.
Roger.
Well, I understand where Heidi is coming from, but with that said, we have 4 years to talk about this after the fact. So I'd like to move that we just accept the numbers as they are and let Bridget and company move forward.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Is there a second? Second by Garrett. Is there further discussion by the,
Yeah, I think that there are some valid concerns in terms of looking to make sure that everyone has the right to vote and everyone has the right to run, on one hand. On the other side of the coin, I think what Robin is suggesting is it moves towards a political rather than what we should be doing, and is following the charter, following what's expected out of the census, and we do the best we can. That doesn't dismiss the possibility of putting in the committee, if Heidi wants to do that, and an opportunity for the next 4 years to try to look at what other places are doing. Are there other university towns that are in the same boat? You know, I think that we're all shooting in the dark here, trying to create something, giving more work to our administration where it isn't really necessary, because we just need to move forward at this point. So that's why I made the motion.
Garrett, do you have more comments?
I would just say, we haven't had the problem in 30 years, and people, when somebody chooses to run and they live in Ward 5, they know what constraints they're under, and that's their job to state what their position will be in future years. And then the electorate gets to decide whether they think that person is going to stay in that ward or not. And it's a pretty fair system, if you ask me.
Heidi?
I'm going to vote no, because I think that it doesn't hurt to look again, because quite frankly, Bridget was not aware that there was a situation here, and that there had been people in
But
that.
I gotta say, point of order, it's not Bridget's job to be aware of who's running for a council position. It's the person that's running that needs to be aware. She's following the letter of the law and the letter of the charter. So
Then-
I take offense at that your insinuation that she wasn't aware of that, or statement that she
Well, this
wasn't
poor
aware.
part of the,
It's not fair.
this poor neighborhood keeps getting pushed back and forth every 10 years. So it's a challenge for anybody living there, anybody who wants to run for council.
Is there any other, Mr. Turner?
Yeah, it's strange because I'm actually going to vote no with Heidi, simply because I think that if it's not too much of a burden on it to try to accommodate this, and believe me, so that's a real stretch for me, because I figure this accommodation isn't more a political one than it is one which is based on the objective criteria that is being used. This becomes more subjective. But since the gentleman in good faith went out and did all the things that he did to try to get on the ballot, if there is a way, if Bridget can do this, then I would like to give her the opportunity to be able to do it, to make that accommodation. Although, like I said, that's a stretch for me. But I think that working for that accommodation in this case only, could be somewhat appropriate or acceptable.
Gwen?
So, am I able to ask a question of Bridget? No, okay,
No.
so in that case.
Only to council.
What's that?
Only to
You
council.
can ask a question of one of us.
Do we have a deadline, a date by which this needs to be completed? Is there any harm in a
No.
continuance at this
I
point?
don't, Bridget can answer that. No.
No, I actually called the Secretary of State because I wanted to make sure, because
Frank?
the last time I did this, it was implied to me there was a pretty strict deadline, and they said, do what you need until you feel comfortable with the numbers.
So there isn't a harm, okay. So in that case, I'm going to say no, only in that, and this is the first time I've seen the maps. I wouldn't mind a moment to look at them myself and kind of ponder some of the points that have been brought up, if there's no harm that's done. And when Bridget initially came up, she requested a continuance. So I'm going to say no, just because it doesn't seem like there's any harm to that continuance. If it's possible, it's possible. If it's not possible, it's not possible. So hopefully it won't require too great of an expenditure of your time or your department's time to just double check it and get back to us. So.
Any further comments? Roger, you made the motion according to the paper. Is this with the emergency if it passes?
I believe it has to be with an emergency, doesn't it?
All right, I just wanted to clarify.
Actually, I did not want it with emergency. It was
Well,
in my memo.
okay, I
I
was
know I'm
just
not allowed to speak on the, it was in the, yeah, but on my memo it says with not emergency.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay,
I know I'm not
Oh, I'm
supposed to talk
sorry.
during the motion, but.
without the emergency.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes?
No.
No.
I think it failed. Okay, thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
It's always
You're welcome.
been here a long time, and it's always a task.
I have one more census, and I hope I'm retired by then.
That's it for committee of the whole. Health and Public Safety, Jack? Jack?
Yes, the first subject on our Health and Public Safety Committee is vape density proposal and moratorium options, and that would be...
Can I just jump in here? So we've got two kind of issues Amy and I ended up kind of combining together. You made a motion to have Hope sort of explore the option of some sort of moratorium, a temporary some cities around us have done these temporary moratoriums on vape shops while they sort through the zoning and the health and all the other kind of framework issues in the community. And Joan was also coincidingly, yes, in parallel with, was exploring her own version of that, which was also, I think, some other cities, I feel like some of the larger cities maybe have adopted these density as another way of getting at sort of capping or managing the control of these. And we're not trying to single out the business, but it has gotten the attention of many in the community, including council. So they'll both be able to speak on different parts of this. And to some extent, as Hope said, if you end up endorsing her concept, you're sort of, by default, is almost creating a moratorium. But they're not mutually exclusive or inclusive. So we'll talk about both at some point. So sorry.
No, I think that's a nice introduction, and thank you. Thank you for the time tonight. So we have actually been planning to present an enhancement to the tobacco ordinance that would look at density for some time. But when we found out that the governor had approved language which would remove home rule on tobacco ordinances with a budget bill, that gave us pause, because it would not only eliminate new ordinances, but would actually take away everything that we have worked so diligently to do already around tobacco. So with his line item veto in the budget bill of what he had exchanged for home rule was a statewide tobacco flavor ban, we are now able to move forward. So let's see. And we did have many hours of speaking with not only the governor but other legislators to make them understand how important home rule is, and that we are able to make rules that make sense for our own community. So we feel much more confident at this point. However, though, the House could still overturn his line item veto, but I'm fairly confident, because of the work with the other legislators that we've been doing as a group of health commissioners, that maybe that will not happen. So and as important as this matter is, and I know we've heard many comments about the lights from the vape shop being so glaring and so bright, but as annoying as that is, it's also a greater health risk in terms of the use of vape products. And the more of these shops that open, the more likelihood that people will become addicted. So we want to try to limit. Jaleesa has done an amazing job of researching, crosswalking, discussing with other communities. So she came up with the proposed ordinance that's in front of you tonight, and I would really like to turn it over to her to describe the contents of the ordinance, and she's done all the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. And thank you, City Council. I'm really excited to talk about this a little bit more. So as we all know, there's been an increase in vape shops / tobacco retailers within the city of Kent. So for comparison, the city has 21 conventional fast food places, but 27 vape shops / gas stations that sell vaping products. So that kind of puts it a little bit into perspective. We have more vape shops than we have conventional fast food restaurants. That's a little bit scary health-wise. But yeah, so the density and proximity provision really aims to address many things with the current establishments being grandfathered in. But the retailers can't open up. So for retailer, we covered a couple different things in this ordinance. We talked about retailer density and youth access. So for retailer density, we discussed them not being able to open within 1,000 feet of each other. Because I know that we see a lot of vape shops and we're thinking, oh, they're competition, they'll drive each other out, but that has not been our case. Literally on Manaway Street, one vape shop went out of business, and a couple months later, another vape shop is back. So they're not knocking each other out of business, which is a common misconception. We also aim to limit the number of retailers allowed down to 20, which would equal 1 per 1,300 or 1,400 people, depending on what census data you're looking at. So that would be a way of limiting. And then, of course, with youth access, we aim to limit the number of retailers. So retailers can't operate within 1,000 feet of a youth-oriented facility. So that includes any schools, daycare centers, rec centers. It also limits the number of retailers that youth can access as well. So that's pretty important. And then I just wanted to give some quick TRL updates because I know the last time I was here, I asked you guys to pass the TRL ordinance, which I was happy that it did pass. So right now we have 27 active tobacco retailers, 17 of those being completely in compliance, with 10 not currently in compliance. And we're working to get them in compliance by the end of the month before we start the fining process. And so this year has really been a learning curve for us. We've learned a lot of things about our TRL and how we can make it better. So for next year, we'll be starting fines earlier. This year, we tried to give some leeway to the businesses because it was very new and they weren't quite ready for it. We are also looking to get them We Card training, just a better way to streamline their training and make sure that they're properly trained. And then we plan on working with other city departments and landlords just to ensure that new and upcoming businesses understand what their responsibilities are. And thank you.
Jack, you didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like.
Thank you. Just a general question on your impression of, or your thoughts on why they're not participating yet. Is it a fighting the system, or they're just not up to speed on what they need to do?
It has been somewhat hard to get in touch with the actual owners of these businesses. A lot of the time we meet the staff, and the staff just don't have that quite sense of urgency. They're not the ones paying the fine, so they're not really worried about it. What we did do in the beginning was actually hand deliver green packets to them with everything that they needed to know, just hoping that they would get to the business owners. But now that we're starting to get applications, the good thing is we do have direct email addresses. So next time we go to do something like this, it'll be much easier.
And just your opinion, have you had much pushback on it?
No, actually, one thing, we had 2 new retailers move in, and I had to give them the packets and kind of catch them up because they weren't here in February, and they actually got their applications in much sooner than some of our more established retailers that have been here for a while.
So the vape shops also have to do the TRL licensing.
Correct.
Also.
Gwen?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick questions. If this were to pass, when would that take effect? Or are we still ironing out details on how it would take effect?
I would look to Hope and Amy. I don't.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I guess I wasn't sure if there were businesses in the process, like, if
I mean, there may be some in the pipeline that are looking to get approval for like their new sign or something like that, so we'd have to look at that. But,
okay.
But like we say, the ones that are currently established and up and running would be grandfathered in because we're already over the limit.
Got it, yeah. Okay, I was just, not knowing exactly when it takes effect, that's totally fine. And then secondly, the governor had said something about when the statewide measure to ban flavored tobacco had failed, had said something about local municipalities issuing their own bans of flavored products. Is it, can,
I would love to bring that in front of council for their approval, because I think that's the next step. Just because we started to see so many vape and tobacco shops opening, so many that said, well, we're going to be a specialty to cigar shop, and then they turn into a vape shop with one box of cigars, you know. So, yeah, so we kind of felt the urgency was more on the density at this point, but I think that the flavor is so important to tackle that next.
I'd be interested to learn
Yeah.
a little bit more about that. Thank you. No more questions.
Anybody else?
Jack, can I just say
Oh,
one thing?
sorry, yeah.
Because this may be in your mind, it was in mine. It's legal for us to do this, right? And Hope have confirmed that, yeah, we have the authority to be able to adopt that kind of density cap or ceiling. So whether you have in favor of it or not, you don't have to worry about the legal side of it. We have that authority. Thank you.
Robin?
Yeah. Is there a cap on the penalty?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
Is
that
there
for me?
a cap on the penalty assessed, the amount of the fine? For
You mean for
non-compliance?
the TRL that the council had passed earlier?
Yeah, is there
That was approved as a stepwise fine, and with the last thing being pulling their retailer license so that they would not be able to sell products if they remained non-compliant or if they continue to sell to underage youth.
So the financial penalty, what is that established at right now?
That was with the TRL. That's not.
How much, I think, is what he's asking.
The first fine is 300, I believe, and then it goes up to 6.
And so that's sizable. That should get somebody's attention. I would assume. So that's not what you assume an issue is for compliance in that regard.
Right.
This is an issue of detachment of who you're getting in touch with at the
Correct. Right now, that's what I'm thinking our problem is, because I haven't met any real resistance with these retailers. So, yeah, I think that's our issue.
Okay.
Further, Robin?
No, thank you.
Roger?
Yeah, I'd like to get back to Dave for a minute. Hope says that this is perfectly legal. Is it perfectly legal because it's tobacco related, or is it perfectly legal that we could do it with any business? Like, could we do it with gas stations by density?
By density, I would have to look at that issue. I know that with, like, say, the marijuana, that is so controlled by the state that we couldn't touch it.
Right.
Or a bank is so controlled by
Okay.
that. But no, the state of Ohio has given leeway for cities to do the things that we're doing, like having them register for a license and
As it relates
and
to
limiting.
tobacco
Yes.
establishments?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to clarify that, because I know some people will hear that
Yeah.
and question, saying, well, wait a minute, why haven't you done this? So,
Yes.
But we've been
No.
given the leeway to do that for tobacco.
Yes, and it just depends on the industry that you're
Okay.
talking about.
Thank you.
The city of Streetsboro has put a density on car washes because they saw so many
Yeah.
car washes popping up. They wanted to limit that. So it applies to
So
other
you
businesses.
can do that with other businesses, okay.
When?
The last time that we had a discussion about vape shops, it was completely unregulated. So it was not inspected. They weren't required to have hand washing sinks and dishwashing sinks. They weren't required to provide ingredient information, and they weren't inspected the same way food retail businesses, even gas stations that sell microwave burritos are inspected. Is that still the case, that this is a completely unregulated product that is generally known to be addictive and cause harm?
So yes, I will say it's regulated in some sense, that we do compliance checks, but really that's just to make sure that they're not selling to underage youth. That really has nothing to do with ingredients or anything like that. So in that regards, yes, it's still unregulated.
Okay, so essentially, rather than the federal government or the state regulating it the way they would regulate any other consumable product, they've left it to municipalities like ours to regulate it in an effort to protect our own residents from a known addictive and harmful substance. Okay. Just want to make sure I was up to date on that. Thank you.
Okay. Further, council? Anyone from the audience? Back to council.
I move to approve the store density that was proposed by our health department.
Second.
Second by Robin. Discussion?
I think that the question, just it being an unregulated, completely unregulated substance that's addictive and has been intentionally marketed to children, it requires us to take some action. And in the future, should it become regulated substance, like we regulate literally everything else that people consume, then maybe we can revisit it. But I think for the time being, I think that this warrants the action.
Okay.
I would just say it's a great start, right? It's a problem. I mean, besides, the health problem is the biggest issue, but the unsightliness and just not the type of business we want to have within our downtown is the secondary problem. So this is a really good start. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. The next item on the Health and Public Safety Committee agenda is School Resource Officer Agreement Renewal. Chief Sheriff.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me some time tonight. I am here tonight. Every year we do this. It's the Memorandum of Understanding with the Kent City Schools for the School Resource Officer Program. The only changes to the MOU this year with the Kent City Schools is they have added our K-9 Officer Mattis to the agreement. If you remember, Mattis was introduced last year to the Kent City Schools as a firearms detection canine and a therapy dog. It's been an extremely successful program and allowed us to really build a lot of relationships with the police department and the kids in our schools. Above and beyond that, the only other change is the dates of the school year for this year. So the term is from the 16th of August through the 23rd of May of 2024. So I'm just here to ask that we approve the Memorandum of Understanding with the schools to extend our School Resource Officer Program for the next school year.
Questions? Anyone from the audience? Back to council.
Move to approve.
Second.
With the emergency, right?
Mike, and then Roger. Discussion? All those in favor? Oh, wait.
You got to
Garrett,
look both
sorry.
ways, like
Yeah.
crossing the street, right? It's a great program, and we get great feedback from the school and the students for the quality of the resource officers we've had. So it's awesome, right? It's really good.
Thank you.
Further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Chief. And you're up here again for the DORA exception request.
Yes, I got an email from Heather Malarchik from Main Street, Kent. She's indicated in her email that on August 16th, there's a plan to bring the Budweiser Clydesdales to downtown Kent. And as part of that, they've requested an exception to the DORA to allow the serving of DORA beverages in I believe it's the Budweiser aluminum cans, the red cans, in conjunction with the Clydesdales being here. So I don't have any objection to it. Heather was unable to be here tonight. She's out of town, so she was unable to be here. But I don't have any opposition to it for the special event. I think it's something that's really cool and will help bring a lot of people into downtown. So.
What?
And I will say this, the reason, because the 16th is going to be 2 weeks from tonight, we cannot pass an ordinance quick enough. So, and that's the way we would usually do it. But I think that if you would allow us, if you would discuss this and give us your ideas, if we get the sense after the discussion that you're okay with it, I think that's enough that authority that we can say yes without an ordinance on this one anyway.
Okay, questions, Roger?
Yeah, in the ordinance, it specifies a DORA cup, correct?
Yes.
Well, couldn't we just specify that the DORA cup for that August 16th, or can we just specify that it's going to look different but be consistent with it without even passing an ordinance?
there's not enough
Yes,
time.
and that's what we would have to do.
Yes.
We would have to say either a Dora cup or a Bud aluminum bottle.
Yeah, there should be some, you hate to use this term discretion by
Yes.
the people who are running the Dora.
Yeah.
You know, make it, but I think we have to publicize it.
Further Gwen?
It's not a question, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I don't know how much that horse drinks, but.
Any further questions from council? To the audience, anybody? Back to council.
Move to authorize.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
There you go.
Thank
you.
That's all health and safety.
Mr. Ferrera.
Got text amendments to the zoning code. This is as exciting as census block data. So carry on.
Actually, this one might be a little exciting. So the first item is a text amendment to Chapter 1105, conditions applicable to specific land uses. So we meet on a regular basis with proposed business entities, and we had a small business approach us about putting what they were calling health and wellness items in a store in our commercial residential district, which is basically East Main Street. Their definition of health and wellness actually met our definition of materials. We were informed by this couple that they were surprised that we were unaware that such items were for sale at CVS and at Walgreens and other establishments. I explained that we don't peruse those aisles, so we would be unaware that they were selling those. But we decided, when we looked at our definition, we needed to tighten it up, make it a little more clear. So we originally had it say, sexually oriented businesses in our zoning code are limited to the industrial district, and they didn't want to be there. So in order to establish parameters that allowed for the presence of such materials in CVS and in Walgreens, I, under the authority of all tasks, other tasks assigned to me, sent 2 of my staff out. I told them not to wear their safety vests. I said, don't wear your yellow safety vest. Try to do it a little, subtle. And sure enough, CVS and Walgreens does have these items for sale, in case you're interested. And so it became a determination of, well, if we prohibit it, we would need to have these national retailers pull those off, and it seems apparently that this is common practice because Myers and Stowe and Drug Mart does not, if you're curious. So we decided we needed to establish specificity on the minimum. So originally the wording had said, an establishment where a substantial portion of the use is distinguished or characterized by, and then it lists sexually oriented activities or materials. And in it, we had a bracket that said that we were defining that as more than a minimal use, but not necessarily a majority of the use. Well, that was too generic, too nebulous. So we realized we needed to get specificity. So we sent our development engineer out to do some calculations. Yes, we did. He did not realize this would be part of his responsibilities. And based on that, we identified that right there, that taped area is 30 square feet of retail space. Because we were throwing out numbers, 5%, 1%, but you have to remember everything we do is with regards to sizes of square footage. So were we going to do retail? Are we talking square footage of the building? Are we talking, and a retailer like Walgreens is going to have much more square footage than what this small business was. So that is the equivalent of 30 square feet of retail space. So we are establishing a minimum. Not to exceed 1% or 30 square feet of retail display space, whichever is less. So that is my first text amendment. See, I kept your attention, didn't I? He always teases me. I have to. When I saw this, I'm like, Garrett's going to love this one. The next one is a text amendment to 1106, and this chapter deals with some of the light issue. And we're going to also address it in another chapter. So in this one, when we were looking at it, one of the issues that our code enforcement officers were having is that we were getting some complaints about motion sensor lights that were shining on other residential homes. So our zoning code had commercial parking area which allowed us to address, for example, a commercial entity that they had to put shades on it because we require zero illumination at the lot line and commercial, but not residential. So what we did here was, while we were doing these zoning code amendments, is we went through all our lighting sections and we clarified it. So this is just a change to say area lighting and talk about eliminate. So that way then, if one of our code enforcement officers gets a complaint about lighting, we can advise that homeowner to shade the light or to dim it. So that is just really more of a clarification matter. The next lighting section is we added a new subsection 5, and that is on the next page. And this is in response to the complaints that we have received for the LED lights that are lining many of the windows and creating that very bright illumination as you drive by. I want to give credit to Kaylin Cyrus, our development planner, for finding this. I thought it would take, she came in a few hours later and found the perfect wording, because one of the things you have to remember with a zoning code is the amendments that are passed, they're in effect now. Existing conditions cannot be changed. That's that old grandfathered in, what we call a pre-existing non-conforming use. So we would not be able to regulate that, because when we were thinking about this, we were thinking, okay, we can say you can't use those LED string lights, we could prohibit those, but those that were there would be in effect. Well, Kaylin found wording from the city of Greene, and actually it's interesting because I actually know the planning director, and he's retired, or I would email him that this was great wording. It focuses on lighting for advertising. The use of lighting for advertising and or conspicuous purposes is prohibited except where such lighting is approved by the Community Development Department or is part of a sign. In other words, if it's not part of a sign, it is prohibited. So those LED lights, if they are illuminating so bright, yes, that is basically, they're using it for conspicuous advertising purposes. So it's not necessarily the string light itself, it's any conspicuous lighting. So if somebody invents another type of lighting device that turns out to be bright, we can control it that way. And this can take an effect now to the existing conditions we have out there. So kudos to her for finding that. The next section, 110610, some of those ones in yellow are literally just grammatical corrections. Drove me crazy. We corrected it with the zoning code consultant numerous times, how to spell principal, building, and we got the LE. So while I'm in here, I know there's Scrivener's errors and I don't have to, but I am correcting them. And the addition that really is being added here is the accessory buildings. I never really thought we would ever have more than 1 or 2 accessory buildings on a yard, but we were wrong. We had somebody that come in and asked to add a 3rd accessory building in their yard. That becomes excessive, even if you do meet the setback requirements. So we decided, that project didn't go forward, but we did decide that 2 outbuildings or accessory buildings in a backyard area is probably sufficient. So we did put that in there to limit that number in that backyard. And then to address the number of neon signs that are lit, particularly in the vape shops, as you know, they have every window, they have them. We do allow window signs. And honestly, if they're done tastefully, it actually adds character to properties. But one of the issues we're having is some of them flash or emit, they scroll. So we are basically limiting the window signs that only 2 can be lit, and they have to be fixed. They cannot have oscillating or streaming or any kind of motion. Now that being said, for those that have lit signs now, those will be allowed. That would be a pre-existing non-conforming because that light was allowed under the prior zoning code. But going forward, any new would not be able to have more than 2 lit. The oscillating, however, is in a different section of our code. We do limit that, and we have been issuing civil offense warnings and citations for ones that scroll or move. So those we have been able to control, but this will also limit the number that can be lit. The final chapter that we are amending is dealing with basically the submission of the Planning Commission packet. So we have, I actually just had this conversation with the city manager a few days ago. The development that we experienced between 2011 and 2018, 2019 has subsided. We can go several months with not having a large project, and that's to be expected because we did have such a development boom. Most of our planning commission applications now with the last few have been comprehensive sign packages, which do not require a full packet of all the information that we would require, for example, for one of our downtown projects or for the Davie building, our Davie site. So the way it was written, however, every single item that was required in the planning commission application and packet needed to be submitted. So with this, we are basically saying that we can specify what we need. So that way, for a comprehensive sign package, we can say you do not need items 1 through 8, because we do not need to see, you know, the different things for elevation and whatnot. We just really need the specifications for the sign. So it just basically allows us to specify that for certain applications, community development can advise you that you do not need to submit that. It's a cost, too. I mean, they have to provide 18 sets of plans. So we want to make sure, that we can minimize what has to be included in those packets. And those are all the text amendments. I can take any questions now.
Questions from council? Mr. Sidoti?
Yeah, Bridget, I just want to make sure I understand. We're talking about standards here.
These are standards, yes.
These are not guidelines.
These are not guidelines.
Okay.
These are standards, which I like to call requirements or regulations.
Okay.
Yes.
But these are standards. I know she
Yes.
used the term standards for specific sign types.
Yes.
So when the planning commission is looking at, they're actually going to use these standards.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
As
And we will too, staff.
And architectural review board is be held to these standards.
These standards, basically the way it would work is because they will be actually regulations in the zoning code. No sign that doesn't meet these can even go forward to the architectural review board.
Great. Thank you.
Further from council? Maybe you could clarify for council the replacement of existing lights if a light were to go out that's already been grandfathered in?
We have a 90-day period that identifies an abandoned sign. So if a sign were out and the light was off for 90 days, it is considered abandoned sign, and then the new zoning code regulations would be in place. So for example, if one of the existing vape shops that had the signs in each window were to go out of business and a new one were to go in and it went in and opened 91 days after that, they would not be able to have more than 2 lit signs in the windows.
And that has to be 90 days for a change because it's site-specific.
Correct.
Anything further from council? Questions from the audience? Back to council.
Move to approve with
Second.
emergency.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those say no. Motion passes. Bridget did say you could contact her discreetly. She'll let you know the names of the places that are off.
I will say there's been a lot of...
I'm here for research.
And you're wearing your Kent
Had a lot of laughs.
I'm sure make sure you wear your
I was just texting you, Bridget.
Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
Yes. We have the street closure request from Kent State University. Eric's going to come up and present for us.
It's his first time in front of us. Let's give it to him.
Well, Dana already did a really good job of kind of setting, so he's just here to get his first test. This is, go ahead, Eric.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for the time. As Dana said, the Kent State University is going to have flashes first Thursday. This event is going to take place on August 24th between 5 and 8 p.m. They're requesting the closure of North Water Street between East Main and Columbus between the hours of 2 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. as part of this event.
That's it?
Any questions from the council of Eric?
I don't know about this.
Any questions for Eric?
No.
No? Oh, Robin, you have your hand up?
Yeah.
No, this is the flash.
Any dissent?
I'm sorry, what's that, Robin?
Any dissent?
Or dissent.
Any companies that are dissenting or any businesses dissenting?
No, not at all. No, everybody that was petitioned signed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is just water, just North Water. It's not,
The street closure is just North Water,
so it's
yes.
not any part of Main Street or anything.
No.
Other questions? Seeing none, out to the audience. Anyone curious about this? Back to council.
Move to approve.
Second.
Emergency.
Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Yeah, that wasn't that bad.
There you
No,
go, Eric.
thank you.
Hey, nice job.
Yeah, thanks. It was hard to mess up with Dana's introduction, quite honest.
You're going to bring Dana here every time, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Do your intro. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we have the Stowe Summit Street Bridge and Pedestrian Improvements Agreement.
Well, Jim, Eric is now undefeated.
Yeah,
He's 1-0, so.
Jim, he set a standard, Jim.
He leave? He knows when the going's good, he left.
At least I don't have to follow Bridget's standard. When we did the trail outside this building and we connected Tannery Park to downtown and Kent State University, we always knew that the section down Summit Street and Stowe Street between Franklin and Tannery wasn't the best. And the reason why we didn't deal with it then was because there's a bridge and 2 railroad crossings in the way, which made it a costly venture. However, if you've noticed, there's barrels on the bridge right now for a reason, and so the county is looking at making some significant repairs to that bridge. So we've been in discussion with the Portage County Engineer's Office to solve more problems than just repairing the bridge. So what we'd like to do is, in conjunction with the county, repair the bridge, widen the bridge to add a sidewalk and side path on the south side, extend that from Tannery Park all the way up to Franklin, and while we do that, we'll pick up basically crossings of Summit Street for the farmers market and overflow parking when they're at Davy Drill. And we're basically looking for your approval to sign an agreement with the county to pursue funding to do that project.
Okay. Questions from council? Yes, Heidi.
Am I hearing that we're going to take that bridge and make it wider so that there could be a bike lane potentially, or?
A side path, which is basically a bike facility to the south. Yes.
So currently there's a sidewalk on the north side
That's correct.
that bikes sometimes go on because it's a kind of a,
Yes.
yeah.
It's a very difficult route to bike.
It is.
It is a very difficult route to bike. Would it then, so the bikes would likely go up on the sidewalks?
So what would happen if they were biking from Tannery and they would get to Summit Street, right before they would get to Stowe Street, they would be a 10-foot wide walk that would go east up along Summit Street and Stowe Street, cross at Mogador Road. We would regrade Mogador Road, that intersection, and then take it all the way up to Franklin, where there'd be a crosswalk at Franklin Street to cross Summit Street.
10-foot wide. Great.
Other questions? Seeing no questions, anyone from the audience?
Very neat.
Back to council?
Move to approve.
Second.
With emergency.
With emergency.
Second with emergency.
Good. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. You were nudging up against Bridget's. Okay, we have State Route 59 alternative transportation improvements. Jim's back up.
Okay. So this is for the piece of 59 from Horning Road to State Route 261. Last June, we came to council and you approved, working with the township and PARTA, to pursue funding to improve pedestrian, bike, and transit facilities on that section of State Route 59. We were successful in getting highway safety dollars to do the design, and that would be funded 90% by the grants. So we're looking for council's approval to accept the grant and execute any necessary agreements with the state for that. And then also, we included another agreement, township and PARTA, to extend our working together through the design phase of the project.
Very good. Heidi?
Would this include a citizen group, or is it representation from the city and the township, basically, that would be working on the design?
So when this project was developed, there was actually a study phase that was done led by the township and PARTA, where the citizens were invited to come to walk the corridor, open public comment period, and this is the project that came out of it.
So we even invited the people from the Citizens Advisory Committee on East Main Street because they had mentioned in the past that that section needs to be done too. So that work, I would say, has been done already.
So you have the public comment, though?
Yes.
That you can use. Okay, great.
Other questions from council? Seeing none, back to the audience. Seeing none, back to council.
Move to approve.
Authorize with the emergency.
Second.
Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Thank you very much.
Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon?
Tobacco use grant. That's always good to get grants.
Right? Yes. I actually have two. Is it all right if I speak to both of them? The grant and the stipend? Okay. So the Health Department had been notified that our tobacco use grant has been extended through 2024. So I'm here tonight to respectfully ask City Council to approve the acceptance of and the appropriation of $117,000 to the appropriate line items. And then also, the state of Ohio has declared August 31st to be Drug Overdose Awareness Day, and they had stipends available of up to $2,000 for promotional activities, marketing, and advertising. So we had plans to go out. This will just help support that effort. So I respectfully ask City Council to approve the acceptance of the stipend, and then also to appropriate it to the line item indicated. That award will not exceed $2,000.
Is there any questions? Is there anybody from the audience? I think need each one of those has to be approved.
I would suggest so.
Yes, okay. I'll look for a tobacco use grant.
Move to, oh, go ahead. Rob.
With emergency.
I'll second.
And a second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'd move to approve the drug overdose awareness stipend
I'll second that.
with emergency.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Joan.
Thank you very much.
Fire Department ambulance service.
Well, he's not a first-timer in the city, but he's probably a first-timer at the microphone. Jamie's been our interim chief, and
Always a lot of firsts.
yeah, exactly. And I think he said to me, everybody else is getting all this grant money. I want a piece of the action, too. So he's here. He's got some lined up, and hopefully you'll approve his request as well.
What a wonderful introduction. Thanks, Dave. So yes, I'm James Samuels. Most people know me as Jamie. I'm a captain with the fire department. Really why I'm here is to ask for your permission to apply for a grant. This grant has been made available to us through ARPA's COVID state and local recovery funds of 2023. It is specific to those that provided EMS during COVID, kind of the first line responders. And obviously we provide that service to the city residents as well as Franklin Township. And so those entities are allowed to have an application sent on our behalf. So this is called House Bill 45, and it's called the Ambulance Transport Program. They've allocated monies across the state, but typically the ceiling for each community is $20,000. So applying on behalf of, as first responders for the city of Kent, we could receive up to $20,000. Applying as the entity that provides EMS to Franklin Township could potentially provide us $20,000 more. They call this premium pay. So essentially, the nuts and bolts of this, I believe, is that it would be kind of a bonus for doing EMS during COVID. So I will tell you that I think something that is probably important to you is, are there matching funds? Is there something the city is required to do? And the answer to that is no. There are no matching funds. Sometimes that sounds too good to be true, huh? So I will tell you, though, that I did speak to the city manager in advance of this because the grant cycle where you could apply was very short. The deadline actually was July 31st. So I sought out his verbal permission to apply to not miss that deadline. But of course, I'm here to formally ask you and make you aware that we had to turn that application in. okay, just to make sure we're doing it the right way. And I will let you know that I spoke to the township trustees at their last meeting about a week and a half ago. Went very well. They were completely in support of it and spoke very highly of the service they feel that the paramedics have provided us all the time, but especially during COVID. So again, just to reiterate, we have applied to not miss that July 31st deadline. The hope is that we did apply on behalf of the City of Kent, potentially up to 20,000, and Franklin Township, and this would be considered like a premium bonus allotment to the paramedics. There are strict parameters of this program of who would get it, when they worked, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm here to just ask that blessing and approval, and hopefully you'll be fine with that. And hopefully, probably by the end of the year, we would know if we were awarded that grant.
Questions?
So are we making a motion to accept the grant if given, if received, basically?
Yeah, offer, yes.
And sort of to apply for it
Yes.
at the same time. Yeah.
Yes.
Further questions? Anybody in the audience? Back to
Move
council.
to approve with the emergency.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you for
very much.
working on this.
Yep,
Thanks.
appreciate it.
That's great.
Did a good find.
And then Rhonda's last. But you just go so quick.
Thanks. So in front of you today, you have 3 memos. What we're doing is some housekeeping that has to be done on an annual basis. City Council had approved some ordinances in past years allowing us to certify delinquent bills that are owed to the city. So one of the memos you have is to certify the unpaid concrete sidewalk bills. The next one is to certify the city utility debts where they're not paying their utility bills. And any one of these, if they pay by August 31st, we will take them off the list before we certify on September 1st. And then the last one you have is for the certifying the delinquent non-utility debts. This includes, usually it includes items from community development as well as the health department. But the civil offense fines for community development are not being certified over to the county at this time, pending the finalization of the current civil court case.
Questions? Anyone in the audience? Back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I'm going to abstain.
One abstention.
One abstention.
And that?
That's what it does. Thanks for attending, and we're adjourned. See you in 2 weeks.
We should have a nonprofit exception on our sidewalk assessment.
The what?
I was wondering why that was there.
We don't have a tax rate. You know? Wait for $1,000. And that's one of our.
I like the visual.
Like I said, is
I thought it had something to do with fire department.
It's not like we're making any money.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sure not.
Yeah, I would agree.
You think,
Nonprofit should
I'm
be
going to bring it up.